Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I've been painting here kind of all day, working on one of my class pieces, and I'm working back there, which is a large moose study, and I'm painting the Denali mountain range from Alaska into the back. And I got to thinking, it'll be really nice because there's been a lot of you who've been asking me about certain concepts in landscapes and stuff. So I want to show you just some quick ways to get what we call atmospheric perspective, linear perspective within a landscape so that you can get some more depth. Because some of you are writing me, how do you get better depth within a landscape? Let's take a look, okay? So what I have here is just a large board. This is 20 by 14. And I have a photo here. I just got a photo, and I'm gonna add some stuff to you know me, I like to change stuff. So I'm going to add some stuff, some mountains and some foothills to a painting like this so we can show you how to get a lot of depth. First off, I made a little mark here. This is halfway, and I'm going to go a little longer than that. My colors that I have out here, I'll list all of them out into the video description, which is right down below. So you'll be able to look at all of them. They're all heritage, and I'm going to paint mostly acrylic today. And this is a nice dirty palette. I've been working all day on it. So I'm going to come up just a little bit above halfway. I'm going to take a Fusion number 8 flat brush here and a little burnt sienna and a little water here. I like to do some quick sketches. There's the halfway. So I'll come up a little bit higher than halfway. And so I put most of that gives me some room to put some nice some nice foreground into the painting, which will help me with my depth. So here's what I always like to start a landscape off, somewhere in there, a nice strong horizontal line. And there's in landscapes you hear me talk all the time about horizontals and verticals and how important those really are. Now, I want to slope some of this slightly right down like that. And then I maybe have another little sloping plane right back here as we do some foothills. The thing is about foothills and stuff into the mountains is that whenever you do reducing sizes of triangles, you get better depth within the painting. And then we can come in here and let's just put in some smaller little type mountains here. I'm very influenced by that Denali range I've been painting over there, so I don't want to get too much similar to that, but we'll push some of that in. Then we're going to have this wide kind of a river right out through here, and it'll come back, and we're going to want to we'll bring this little shoreline out here like this, maybe bring it in right there, and then we're going to want to add some diminishing size here. This is what we'll do with our linear perspective back here. We'll push some of that river and stuff and some other sides back there. So just an overall landscape. So you can see here like this, any one of these lines, see these lines that are on here, this is something that helps you with linear perspective. Now, one of the things that I'm gonna put probably right over here to the side is I'm going to come right back down over here, and I'll put this bigger tree right here, which will help me with my perspective there also. And one reason why a lot of landscape artists always add a tree off to the ends is it stops your eye from moving over. Remember, see how your eye moves off to this side? This line, this powerful vertical line here, stops your eye from moving over that way. And then if I want to get the ultimate depth, I will repeat that tree shape, just like you see in the photo there. Somewhere maybe right around in here, but it won't be up quite as high here. And it got a little dark there. But I'll repeat that tree shape here, right up in here. Maybe, some of those shapes. Now, so you'll see it larger right up here and then smaller right up here and up in here, up into this area. A few other, you may even come back down over here and do a line of trees or something like that. But this diminishing size down will help you with your perspective into the painting. Normally we put in what we call right up here, somewhere on the horizon line, and we call it a vanishing point. You set that up there, then everything is drawn down towards that vanishing point. As you get more experience with landscapes and stuff, you can just kind of visualize that. When I first started drawing it, when I first started painting landscapes, I drew out and grafted out and did everything there so I can learn how to see it. Now, let's just come in because we're going to probably put in some clouds and stuff like that. Let's just come in with the general sky, which is what I use a shortcut color called Sapphire and a little bit of phthalo and some white. I generally like to start out the skies right around a value 8, so it's really quite light, especially up and along the horizon line there. And I'm going to be I'm using a 3/4 inch brush, and I'll just be a little wispy here. This is just going to be a real quick study for us to practice some of the atmospheric and perspective things that we can do within a painting to get more depth into it. So we'll start out here. This is the atmosphere. The sky sets the atmosphere, sets the feeling of what's going to happen within your painting. And so generally what I'll do is I'll start it out fairly light, right along what we call, when you have a mountain up here like this, it's called the skyline. So right along the skyline there is, I'll keep that there. And then maybe a touch, a little bit more color, a little brighter color, a little bit more going on as it goes up into the painting here, up into the sky. So the sky, you know, when you go outside and you look at it, it's lighter right along the edge of the horizon line or the skyline, and then it gets darker as you look up. And I go into the actual physical reasons why that happens in a lot of my classes and stuff, and for the understanding, but will be a little too much for right now. So I'll just push that in, and then I kind of push that around a bit to create some of the atmosphere that's back there. We may want to add some clouds and stuff later on if we have time. Here we'll try to, but we're going to try to keep this moving forward. Now, let's add some of the dark. Let's get up into let's take some of our nice violets. It all depends on what kind of mountains you want to paint. Do you want them just as lower hill mountains? Do you want to have some depth back there for some snow and stuff? I think maybe we'll do some of that. So we'll make a violet. We'll take it off, tone it down with some red and some burnt sienna here. And I'm going to add a touch of the sky color here. Just a touch of it to start to lighten it up. Normally, I will keep the mountains very light, but I'm going to show you another technique here, which will work really nice for you, especially you acrylic painters like myself. Let's decide on the light. Here, we look at that, so we look for a few shadows here. It's mostly a midday, but there are some shadows kicking off here to the left, so the light's coming in from the right. Let's lighten that just a touch here. And so what we'll do is we'll just lightly come in like this, and kind of, because we'll put some snow onto these and everything, and we'll create some different little ridge lines and stuff like that. We'll create some fun mountains here. Maybe put up another little, just so it's not the same. I'm a left brain painter, and really easily I start to make stuff too much the same. So I like to vary it. I have to physically tell myself to vary some of those vary some of those edges and the number of points and stuff you have there. I love to do this. Just take that paper towel and draw through and send some of that back. Let's thin this out with water, and what we'll do is we'll just kind of wash in right now, just real quickly, some of that color, taking it down here, moving it down. Purple Mountain Majesties here. Just drop some of that down here, and so we'll set that back. Now, snow, all that kind of stuff, and the atmosphere of it. What do you want? How do you want to set it back? We'll do that. Before I do that, I'm going to set up a warmer color. Take some burnt sienna, some yellow oxide, maybe some of my grays here. We'll thin this out with some water, and we'll do this just starting out as a wash here. All right, like this. We'll put that one kind of triangle in. Maybe some lighter sky grays right into that, which will help it settle down or push back just a bit here. Okay, and take a pick towel, just run right through it. that helps it with the atmospherics of it. Paper towels are great, especially acrylic painters like what we are here. They really help. Now we'll come just a touch darker. As we come forward, that's one of the rules of atmospherics. Colors get a little darker. So let's just bring that in here. Right now, just like that. We'll do more. We're going to do a lot more. But we'll just drop some of that in right now, right in there. Now what you got to do is you have all these different planes, and you can see it's starting to set up the planes. Now what we need to do, after I set down those colors up, I need to harmonize those planes, bring them together. So what I do, a real quick, easy way to do it, is thin out your color. Take your yellow, right into your mountain color, right into your sky, thin it all out here, just like this. And what we're going to do is just wash a little bit of that right into our mountains here, and that's going to bring the two planes closer together color-wise and allows us to see what is going to be happening there. Brings that in just a bit closer. Now, let's go take some of that gray, some of this blue here, and we'll make snow onto the mountains. Snow, I make two different types of colors. On the light side, I usually use an orange, so I usually take an orange, a light kind of color orange here. I'll take some yellow, some red, and some white, and dirty brush here. And we're going to bring the light in from and let's hold my brush flat like this. And we'll bring the snow in here from the lighter, from the warm side, the right side of it here. Those look a little bit too even, so we'll add another little bit there. Maybe just a touch onto that one. I'm going to keep it really casual. It's casual. It's not messy. Okay, there's a difference. Okay, and so we'll just keep that up here. We'll do that. But see, so you can see generally just how quickly that look starts to set up, and then you can see how I take it into a bigger painting like that, where I'm using the same type of feeling, but a little bit different technique and stuff with it, but you get that feeling. Now, so the warm side here is to the right side, and those are feeling just a little even. So I'm gonna take my bit of blue and violets here, just a bit of that violet, and work another one right back up here, just so it's not all exactly the same there. And then we'll take some of that light, we'll push that on, that light and warm right on that side there. There we go. So that's just a bit different now. And this is your first look, what I call a quick look at it. To the cooler side, I'll take basically a violet here, and so the warm side is the yellow, or yellow orange. The cool side, shadow side of it, is a violet here, and that's what happens naturally in snow. One of the things of living out here, and I get an opportunity to study snow and the colors of snow all the time. So we'll have some violets and stuff there with that. Now, that's quite a bit. Now, do we want to drag any of that down? We could drag maybe some of that down a ridge line right through here, just to carry some of that through. Just a bit of that snow. And you see it's very grayed here, because we want that to all recede back. Now, what I do is I start painting mountain interest, okay? So I'm going to go to a smaller brush here. We're going to go back to our violets here, back into some of our violet mountain colors here, and a little light, some of the grays and stuff that I have here. Nice different colors, right? Different types of colors. And what I like to do is I just come back up in through here, and this resets some of my shadowing that maybe I want to have into that edge of that mountain and there. And what it does is it settles down some of the snow. Sometimes I get aggressive with snow, and I'll lose some of those nice lights and darks. And I'll push some of that back in there again. Right in there like that. Take some of that snow out. And so in a big painting, I go back and forth between light and snow and mountain color several times until I start to get the look that I want to have to that mountain. Let's take some of that edge off of that one. See, I just used the different corners of my brush. That's what gives you a tremendous amount of interest, to that. Now, let's go back over to our lights. So I like that. Let's go back over to our warms here. A bit of red, yellows and that orange. All pretty colors here. And we'll warm that up. And let's pull back down again. And this is where you can add smaller little touches and different little ridge lines and pull colors down and, just start adding more to the mountains. But you're thinking this time, like, where's the sun hitting on that mountain right there? It's hitting right there. Maybe pulling down this ridge line right here a bit, And sometimes I'll leave textures in these. Here's a nice little run right there. Leave that. Sometimes I'll leave textures. Sometimes I'll, make it very... If I make it... The smoother I make it, the further it recedes back into the painting. So sometimes I, do a lot of textures. Sometimes I do a little bit. And, just make nice variations. Just so you understand that texture will not only adds interest, but it brings it forward and just does great things into your painting. Let's put a little bit of that warmth. So we did the cools. Let's just break some of this down. So you'd have the warmth onto that right side coming down here. If you built like little, edges and little ridges and stuff here, little hills, that's what you would have there. And let's do so we don't get too much the same, let's do a longer one here. Just pulling like that. Pull some of that down. So you get ideas of light and shadow into your snow there. And sometimes, big mountains, when I do big mountains and stuff like that, I do swirling little valleys and snow. Matter of fact, we could swirl a little valley in there. That might be interesting. To swirl a little valley here, right in there, a little snow-covered valley, right in there, and then you would take violet to the shadow side over here, so you have the shadow and the light side of the snow there, coming right on down, and so this will be like a good fall day here, good fall landscape, snowing up into the mountains there. And we'll pull some of these colors further down. So that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of, this is a nice little valley, maybe a little valley snow right down there like that. So you can start building and doing all kinds of stuff, to your mountains there. And, how much you put in, that's all up to you. I'm going to let that dry for a minute. Okay. And let's go on. We'll go back to our 3/4 inch brush here, and we'll start some other things here. Let's get some of the water in. So water is sky and reflections, basically. So let's take some of our sky color, and let's just quickly, and I'll use water into this so that it dries pretty fast. I want it to dry. Now you can paint it more, open acrylics like you've seen me do on other landscapes and stuff, but here I'm wanting it to dry so I can show you some different types of concepts that we can use as landscape painters. Let's carry, just like that photo, we'll carry some of that water right out over here, okay, and we'll carry just a bit of that coming back here, maybe just a little bit of it. As it's coming back there, we'll see highs and lows of it coming through. That's pretty good. Let's this is too much of a triangle here, so we'll vary that just a bit. There. So then we're going to have a nice winding little river here. Let's take some of our yellow oxide, maybe a touch of our greens and stuff here. And this is where we'll get lots of color later on. But we're going to have some the foreground here. So we'll block that in. Here, now notice that I didn't add any sky or anything to it. I did just nice color. Let's get some burnt sienna, some green, and some yellow. And sometimes I don't even, we don't mix that up real well. So we get some different colors and stuff coming off. This is the modeled color. Now dark colors, remember this, dark colors advance. The sky colors recede, okay? So the sky is going to recede, the dark colors are going to advance. And we'll push some of that through. This is where sometimes when I'm just doing it quickly, I'll grab some of my colors right onto my paper towel here. I love painting with paper towels. So, and see, it just does a lot of the work for you real quick here. We can, as we go back, we'll go lighter and add a little sky to this here, because this is going to cause it to become more atmospheric here. And so we'll lighten it more to the value of the sky. We can put a bit of that in here just for some color, but we'll lighten it to the sky. And a great way to get up there to some of that is to just use your paper towel and use it, break the edges, and just thin, basically almost washes of color, which will allow the lightness of the canvas of the board. This is a board, which I didn't tell you. This is a board, and I prepped it with the canvas prep medium. I use the canvas prep medium or light color, basically because I like how it grabs the brush. I don't like to add any sealers or gessos or anything like that, because a lot of gessos have vinyl and stuff in them that can cause your brush to slide. I don't like the brush to slide on the surface. I like it to grab so I get some of these nice looks. So here you can see we're setting up some of that depth, right? And if I go more towards that sky or light sky and set some of that coloring right back up in there, some of those tones, that helps that back hill, see, take a look at that, that helps that back hill even recede a little bit more. So as you're going back, you're looking at atmospheric perspective of things have got to become more like the sky here, okay? So right up into this front, though, we can have a bit more going on. In the photo, I kind of like some of that stuff going on. And, what is it all in there? We don't really know. There's some houses in there, some trees and stuff like that. So I'm going to give it a little bit more color right in that particular area where I can work in there to develop some of that stuff if you want. So it'll get about a medium tone color here. Right up like that. We'll bring some of this up a little higher. Maybe there's going to be some trees or something right there. Okay. And right now I stay very loose. Let's change that. I love that burnt sienna in there. Let's change up some of that color. It's just some, just some color variation up in there. Maybe there'll be some of that. It's right there. Let's get the colors a little more yellow, green, right up here. Working, horizontal strokes, which help you. Any kind of brush work, here's the other thing, guys. Any kind of brush work that you do here, leave it into the horizontal. This is the linear. Your brush helps you with your linear perspective of your plane. So as I put a little more color, like right up here, the darker color is going to advance, and I use some good brush work. And then I let that brush work soften out as I go back here. It gets smaller and smaller. It doesn't get the big wide brush. It gets smaller little movements back here, which gives you more of what we call linear perspective here. Now, let's come back. We were going to have a back hill over there. Let's set that in just little bit more color right into that one right there. That's going to go in right in there. And let's set just a touch lighter, a bit more atmospheric. Here, a bit more of the bluish kind of color from the atmosphere. We'll just push some of that in there. And let's get, we were going to bring this one in, one right up in here, maybe a bit farther forward, so it gets a little darker color right up here. We'll let that back one sit there. We'll just put another one in on this side here. So you can see I do these planes, and I'm planning the planes as I put them in here. I plan the planes for their, basically a lot of their value and their brushwork, which, and I'll soften that right in there. But see, as that value right there is a little bit darker, it's going to come a little bit farther forward. That means if I really want to get something far forward up here, I've got to get it darker. So up here in the very front, this has to go darker yet, which will cause this area here to come forward even more. Because dark colors, when you're painting that, like the day, the sky, and what's going on in the sky, dark colors in the foreground will come forward, light colors recede because it becomes more like the sky here. So as I set colors up in here, darker colors, there'll be more darks and lights and stuff like that that will set that, you know, that feeling of it right there. So that works in there. Let's lighten that just a bit. Grab a bit of that same kind of coloring. Well, I'm going to paint this very impressionistically, but so don't you see all those trees? There's a little house, maybe a little school right over there. You know, it's kind of fun. But I got a natural shadow right there, right next to the hill. I can reinforce that by maybe a little more light. I kind of like that, maybe just a touch more light right there. So after you get some of your colors in, you can go back in and paint for light and shade and add even more, you know, more work into it if you want. Here, get a bit more interest back there. Let's pull just a real light atmospheric light right here down like that. Very receding kind of tone. See, it's going way back. Now, to bring that in, or really to recede that mountain back even more, let's take that tone right up here towards our mountains even closer, and see that will push the, it's called the atmosphere. See, that pushes that back. Take a look at that. Now, that camera's at 8 feet, so you're seeing the depth of the landscape there at 8 feet, okay? So what you do is your colors here all become like the sky, and that's what's setting them back. Now, you know what happens? Let's take a look at this. This is just good concepts, and you think about these rules. These are good perspective rules that you get when you study color theory and stuff. But let's set some of that mountain, because that mountain isn't completely back as much as I want. So let's set it back. One of the things that I do, matter of fact, and it works really well into a painting, is I add the atmosphere over some of the objects to recede it. It's one of the reasons why I love acrylics, because that's dry there already. So what I'll do is I'll take my bigger brush and I'll put some extender right over the painting here. And extender will keep it wet for a few minutes here as I work a few things into the painting. I don't want a ton of it on the surface, so I'll wipe some of that down there, okay? And then I'll decide, you know, how far back do I want to push something, and do I want to maybe take one of those peaks up a little bigger. I'll decide that here. But what I'm going to do is our base sky here was some sapphire, a tiny bit of the blue, and some white, and we took that sky right up to about a value 8. I don't want to go up to like a 9 or a 10. I want to keep it right about what that sky is. Then I'll take my brush, just a tiny bit of that, and thin that out into the brush, mix some of that extender into it really well, and I'm going to glaze this over the back hills. And you see how that pushes them back. Just boom, just like that, real quick. So all of a sudden you see those back hills just go back just like that. What you've done is you've painted the atmosphere. Now I can walk this farther forward, maybe just a touch there. Let's push that one back. But you see, boom, there goes those back hills just immediately even further back. But I can take that atmosphere, basically the sky color here, over any areas that I think I want to recede a little bit more. And I think that's pretty fine. So you can paint a mountain with a lot of interest and then just instantly shove it back, right to the back. So it works really well. There's some clouds right up there. Let's put some of those on. Let's take some of this, some of our grays, some of our beautiful gray colors. One of my favorite grays is the green and violet. I love those grays, especially the violets because it's on the cool side. And let's add some sky to that here. And let's just put in some wispy clouds here. And just a few of them. We'll start out with some shadows there. Then I'll come back over to the warm side here. I'll just grab some yellow, which will warm it, and some white. And let's just push that in, maybe right off the edge there. Push that in. There's some warmth into the sky. And it also, what's going to happen there is that's going to pull some of the colors from the front of the composition up. Now, what you can do, since you have your nice big fusion brush here, is you can just pull through a couple times just to soften that out if you want. See, and just soften those grays right back into the back there. Then we can, don't rinse your brush in water or anything, just pinch wipe it with a paper towel here. We'll step off over to the side here with some white, and we'll add some lighter colors right up here like this. Just whisper the brush. This is what the fusion brush does. It just does these real light little touches. We'll add a few little wispy edges there to it. And maybe right up in here, we'll just build up some of that one there. Here. And I can decide if I want to push back or soften out the edges. Take my paper towel here, and this will really, as you see this, really soften out and push your clouds a little further back and give you some differences. You know, you're all going to want this paper towel. This is a Kirkland paper towel from Costco. Honestly, it works really well. I like it because it doesn't leave any lint. You know, and some of your paper towels leave grungies all over. So we can do that and just pull that back like that. And yeah, and if you want to, you know, maybe pick up some highlights of some of the snow, you can just take this right back through here like this and just add some highlights in some areas, bringing back just a touch of your mountains by how much you want. And if you bring it back too much, there's no problem. Just let that dry and just hit it with a glaze again. You know, glaze it back, hit it back again, and it'll look like you know what you're doing here. Let's put this little ridge line of that right there. Kind of tie those together just a bit, like that. Maybe bring this one, I was thinking maybe I bring this one up a little higher, edge there. And yeah, so you see, so this is just like what I do there, but those mountains have a little bit more work on there. But honestly, those mountains, you look back there and you think, oh wow, those are pretty, those mountains are pretty nice. Those mountains took me about 40 minutes to paint. Just boom. So we're at 34 minutes so far into this. So the biggest thing I think, and the hardest thing as an artist, is to just let yourself go and just kind of let it happen, you know, and because I so many times I'll start to get too perfect with something, and that we'll leave a little bit more dark, a few little tappy motions there. That'll give some interest right up there to that mountain. That's pretty good. And let's take that tone. So I just made a tone that had some of the warmer colors into it. Let's just add a few little edges of that as well up in here. I like to do this on westerns and stuff. So, boom. So we'll set that back. That worked pretty good. That looked pretty good there. And then the thing is to now, as you paint stuff, as we do a tree, as we do some of this stuff in here, is that we use more color as we come forward. First, let's just set back. Let's set back to a little bit of the river there, which is just sky. So we take some of our sky here, and we'll just in and out. Right back there is going to be that little river. Maybe it comes back right there like that. Just so what makes that disappear back there, that's the sky. Use that sky color. We can break the edges of it there a bit, but let's drop some of that sky in. And I don't want to get perfect edges. I want these to fuzz just a little bit. They get a little fuzzy there, and that causes some distance. So that's just a little perfect. We can take some of this edge, just break that edge a bit. Drag over that. There we go. That sets that river back just a touch further. Let's break up some of these. We'll have some trees and stuff in here. Maybe they go right up over our edge of our river there. It's just so fun. Once you understand the perspective and how this all works with linear perspective and stuff like that, you can just, in your mind, you could have a photo there that just doesn't have mountains in it, and you can add mountains. You can do stuff. Your creativity expands. As your knowledge expands, your creativity expands. That's why I always tell, I've told my students, I've taught color theory since, 1985 was the very first, 83 was the very first time I taught color theory. And color theory is what's made me the artist that I am today, studying the color theory. And color theory is not red and orange, make red orange, or yellow and red make orange. It's not that. What color theory is a lot of this studying of the atmospheric and rules of contrast, and and being able to recognize that within a painting here, and how can I add more interest and stuff like that to a painting. I'm going to take a real atmospheric yellow right down in here, put a little edge, and see, I can make other little hills and little stuff going on back there. Let's take a bit of the shadow part of that right back here. Just break that line. Maybe just an idea of some of that color back there. Not a lot, just idea. And and it helps us create all of this depth back through there. As we come forward, so right up in here, our water will start to pick up reflections. So, in honesty, you would probably in this river right here, because the angle's so low, you would probably see some of the mountains there. But this will all be reflections in the water here and you can see it right there. There's reflections in the water from those trees and stuff there. So you pull down the same colors, and you can quickly. A lot of people think, oh, you got to be wet in there. No, you can just scumble that on. This is scumbling, and it does a great job. And it kind of looks like it's kind of blended in there, but it does a great job. And then you can take some of that light, maybe just a touch darker, some of these colors, and just blur right across that just a bit. Just like that. You'll get the highs and lows of the river there. Let's put some of that in there. Maybe just a little touch of that. But you'll get some of that right there. Sometimes you get the unevenness of a reflection like that. This is all stuff that is just, and see, you can do it with an acrylic really quick. As long as you understand what's happening with it, you can do it pretty darn quick. So I'm going to take a touch lighter yellow right in here and add a bit more color right there. I don't like light spots of the board coming through, so I like to get rid of some of those. And We'll push some of that color in there. But calligraphy now. So back here, my calligraphy is large. I mean, excuse me, is small but soft. So you know, any kind of lines that I do back here, if I do any kind of these lines, they're close together and soft here. That's what you call the linear perspective, okay? And back out here, they advance and get a little bit whiter here. So let's get a little green, a little bit of the burnt sienna and stuff here. We'll push in more color, right? As you come forward here, this has to be a bit more color. This is right up into the front up here is where I'd start using maybe some of my palette knife and stuff like that. Now you can see back there what goes. I start using some of my palette knife and everything to bring the color or add some more interest into objects that as I'm painting it here. Now I like this, where that sky and the reflections and stuff in the water all kind of cross over each other here. We'll go a bit darker because water as it comes forward is actually going to get darker. Everything does as you're out from the atmosphere. Okay, so we'll push some of that in there. Let's break up a little bit of the Phthalo Blue in there too. But let's just break some of that up right up in here. Pull some of that out here. Create some, you can see how you start to immediately create more interest and stuff. That's your job, you're the artist. Let's create some of the reflections. The sky's going to reflect right up here, so let's just take some of our sky color here. Doesn't have to be the same. Usually in a water reflection, I don't want to make this a rule, but depends on the angle at which you're viewing the water. But usually in a water, the water is the reflection is a little darker than what the object is that's causing the reflection. So the sky would be just a touch darker. Let's get some more blue and maybe a touch of phthalo into that. I'm going to add a touch of extender. This is just going to, I'm not using it to keep it wet as opposed to make my brush slide. I like my brush when I paint like the front of water to slide, and the glycol in the extender just causes your brush to slide really nice. So now I'll bring in some more color, maybe a bit more color right up here into the front here. And I'll do some pouncing like this, and then some smoothing that just causes a variation to the water there, just like that. See, and after I get some of this in, then I can start thinking, okay, let's start thinking about some clouds, some reflections of the clouds. And what you're going to do is you're going to do those grays, beautiful grays. Now I like the green and the violet. It's just nice grays. Let's lighten that up though just a bit. So I'm just going to read just a couple of areas here, like boom, boom. Just push some of the colors. I'm not going to do anything perfect in here. Let's lighten up, warm it up just a bit, and just toss this in. See, this is just a good, and those of you that are, especially those of you that are beginners, and I'm painting really fast here because I'm trying to show you guys stuff in a reasonable time so no one complains that my videos are too long. And what you can do is just take a board like this. It doesn't have to be this big, just a smaller board, and practice these color values, practice your calligraphy, what's all going on here. So, and that's the best way, because you got to teach your eye to see. And so here I'll just put on some ideas of some of those clouds that are right up there. And to make a good reflection, I'll pinch wipe my brush, and I'll just pull down and blur it up and down just a bit. And then a little bit side to side, and that'll set that into the water. Just boom, just like that. And you have cloud reflections into the water. It doesn't take very much. Now, we've got this. Let's take a bit of yellow and burnt sienna here. Let's just kind of go right over that edge there. right over to blue. I'll go back and forth with some of this. Well, that makes that kind of marshy land that's right there. So I break those edges up here. So I don't want to use the same color over and over again. I model my brush here with some of these different colors, right like this. I like that right in there. And I'll start reading some of that movement there. And so you just quickly add some of that. Let that marshy, broken edge, maybe up and down a bit, right in there, like the front of the water there. And, you know, over to the other side, there's kind of a bigger stroke of a green. Let's even get some Hansa in there, which is going to give us a brighter green. Lighten this up a bit. And let's just take a movement stroke, which is a longer angular stroke here that will add the slope to that little hill there. That's not too bad. Let's model that up with some more color. And I'm running out, and I'm almost out of my yellow oxide. I'm going to have to get some more of this stuff out here. There we go. So the color here, let's just take some of this, and you know, I'll move it back through, but I'm going to take more of a drawing kind of a stroke here and create some edges right up there like that, some color. We can model. Model means to push into the brush some other colors without mixing it real well. You don't want to mix it real well. Just run some other colors in there. Follow that kind of movement. That's what gives you your shoreline and stuff like that there. And let's take just a bit of that light right there. Right up on that edge. There, that's you know, that's horribly straight. I wanted to show you what not to do there. Horribly straight there, Dave. So let's just break some blues right up into that. Break those edges. And when I first started painting landscapes, I always think, oh, you got to do that shoreline. You got to take that edge of that knife and just cut along that shoreline and stuff. And anymore as an impressionist, you just kind of tap those colors around and you put in the idea of a shoreline, but people can't always find it really well what it is, because in actuality some of that color will come right down into the water as a reflection. You would pull down and get a bit of a reflection. So we'd even take some of that yellow right there, right along the edge as a reflection and stuff, and that works pretty good. Let's take a bit of water right with some of that color, add just a bit of atmospherics to it, and run that right down here. So that's just let that edge just diminish down there. So you see some of that color. Let's see some of that color in here. And, you know, and that I really like because there's all kinds of little bushes and stuff like that back in there. Get some of those greens and those yellows, and you know, maybe there's just bushes and stuff back there, and right up here some of that movement and stuff with that. And a lot of times you don't have to paint anything perfect. Like I can just give the ideas of like little bushes and stuff here like this into this painting, and I don't have to really do too much because your eye will see them as that. I'll take some of the size of that down a bit. Maybe touch it. It's just movement and color. And this is the impressionist part of it. That the impressionist, you don't need to paint anything perfect. You're just giving the idea of stuff going on, you know, around there. And yeah, that works with that. Let's take a. Sometimes I will put in a. If I want your eye to fall back here, like right into this area here, a more defined shoreline, and I'll just tap the edge of it there just to break it just a bit. But and then right up in that edge there, maybe just a touch every once in a while of that blue sky of the water. which helps. And of course, you know, you can really put in some nice highlights and stuff like that. So maybe you pick up just a bit of it. If there's wind blowing the little color waves and stuff, you would pick some of that up there. Here we go. Just some of that through. And just let some of it back there just kind of disappear. You know, it doesn't need anything back in through there. Let some of those, what happens to that river in there? Goes underground, comes back up maybe. Or you just put up a little bit of the edge of it. Maybe it's coming around the corner there. You know, it doesn't need it. So now look at that eye in there. Now you can come in and work some of your trees and work some of your, you know, some of your other stuff going on. If I was painting, you know, pure, and see that mountain sets back. Now, what usually happens when you put it on that glaze like that, and you have to make sure that you're using a really good artist quality, like the Heritage or artist quality acrylic when you do that glaze, because the Heritage, like this is an artist quality, it's pure pigment, and so you put that on there, it pushes back real nice. Cheaper bottled acrylics or craft acrylics will have opaquing agents like Destrin and stuff in it, and what that'll do is that'll make it look cloudy and unnatural. You won't get the atmospherics. So you have to use an artist quality to push back and get atmosphere on that and tie the whole thing together. You have to use an artist quality type of acrylic so that you get a better result from it, okay? It has to be clear. Artist quality means that it doesn't have any more than 4% impurities within it. Craft acrylics and stuff will have like 50% of Destrin and fillers to make them go opaque. It makes them opaque, but it's not pigment. It's just cheap filler. And so you want to avoid that if at all possible using that. Let's push. See, so now as I come up in through here, I'll start adding other little things, other little movements. Sometimes use my paper towel and break some of those edges. And if I'm an impressionist painter, that's what I do, is I just add these little colors, tones, movements in here, and you know, give ideas of like this is going to be little bushes and stuff like that, just other stuff going on. And I start breaking up some of my bigger strokes with other little marks. This is how I like to do it. You see, and so that looks a little more like ground and more stuff going on. I try not to have too much of a continuous line. I'll break that line a bit, and it adds more stuff. And every once in a while, you can take just lightly a little bit of that color, glaze it out into the backgrounds, which will help you with your color harmony. So as long as you don't put so much on there that you change the position of some of your stuff, you know, and then you come back up here and let's put in some ideas of where those trees are going to go right in there. Maybe this is going to be a little grove of trees. A little water here, Dave. Let's add a little water. Thin that down, use the corner of your brush. Very impressionistic here. Colors. Sometimes some horizontals, some verticals, put in some ideas there of that color. Lighten up. Now this is where you've got to remember where your light source is, which is on the right. So I'll lighten up, make a nicer green here, and come off here to the right side. And I generally, just like I tell you with a lot of things I paint too much. You know, I paint too much and then I go back and take it back out here. Let's go back up to this medium color. And you're going to paint just the impression, the hardest thing. And see, I do that all the time, is I'll line those little suckers up to the same height right all the time. And then I have to go tell myself, Dave, now you get to go paint some of that back out. But that's okay. I'm a professional. I can paint it back out. I know how to paint stuff out. Let's make a little more yellow, a little more light. Sometimes it helps to go to a different brush, but I try to, when I'm doing impressionism like this, I try to paint with as large a brush as possible here. And so that I use different corners. See, I use the different corners, different edges, and it gives me a little different look here to it. Let's, you know, to make them look really great, you've got to get some other colors in there. Let's get some yellows in there. And maybe some burnt siennas and some of those yellows in there. This is the fall, right? We're painting fall here. First snow on the mountains here. But it gives you the general idea about what I'm doing here. And, you know, I'll take some of my darks, dark green, blue, some burnt sienna, and come back in here, especially onto the left side, and take some of that back out. Just like I do with the mountains, I'll paint some of these trees the same way, taking some of that tone out. You know, I've got a lot of it right there, so maybe I'll just tap through that a bit, take some of that out. You can make more, you know, specific trees. It all depends. Everyone's different. You can make more specific type of trees there if you want. You know, I am painting the Eastern Impressionistic trees here. Here we put some of that color up there like that. Just some of that nice color. And see, then I would, you know, if I want to, so you step back there and go, yeah, that's not too bad. But then if I really want to drive some interest into it, these are all just good things. And this is one of the things, like, you know, some of you have heard me, if you've watched landscapes, different things that I've done to try to teach you different landscape techniques. I really like Richard Smith, and we lost him this last year. Such a wonderful painter. But he did a technique called drawing in. He drew you into the landscape quite a bit by the way he used edges and colors. And I really do like that look. And so you could come right back up in here, put in a nice edge with a bit of slope, just like that. And by leaving that edge, just that, and almost like a, you know, this is a nice grassy field going down there to the edge of the water. Your eye is drawn from here now back up into here because I'm leaving what is called all these edges, and more than anything else, textures. So I draw you, it's called drawing into the painting. So I draw you into the painting. Leave some of these, use your brush kind of flat, leave some of those fracture marks like that. That just adds interest, and into the painting you go. These are wonderful things. And so many people will say, oh, I can't paint, can't do that. Well, all you have to do is just, anybody can paint. You just got to study the techniques so you have the ideas, so you know how to develop the looks. It's all just techniques. And you can come back and put some of those little bushes and stuff like that there. Maybe just a few marks of those. There's some little bushes. Maybe some lighter little yellow touches there. You know. So, you know, when you look at, that's not really good, but it's impressionistic. You can just smear it with your finger. So here we're about an hour into this, and you can see you get a lovely depth to that. You know, I could atmosphere more. I could bring out, you know, as this dries now, I could say, oh, I want it just a touch or so, maybe more. See where I added the extender? It's still wet here. And so I'm just going to just add a bit of more light, maybe a bit of that blue in there, just a bit more light right up into that cloud. See how that dries down. It will dry down a little darker. The clouds are kind of warm up there, so a little more blue. Leave some of those little marks here. I just love painting with acrylics. I painted with oils for years, and I love the acrylics. They're so clean. And I love being able to do the scumbling and stuff across the, you know, across a board an area that's dry. Let's build this one up a bit and send this across just a bit, and just take off that bottom edge there. That's a nice cloud. Yeah, and so you can build more color, more stuff going on here. Now, if I don't want to draw in, I could add some additional interest and stuff right up in here and bring the viewer right up into the front. Or I can, so you can see as if I do this, if I start adding a lot of brushwork, a lot of movement right in here, that's going to bring the viewer right up here to the front. And so, you know, that's up to you what you want to do. If I don't want to do that, then I'll add some darks here. Hey guys. Hey. My dog is chewing on a bottle over there. You hear that? Yeah. She goes, hey, I've seen all this before. It's okay. Hey, what are you doing? So, you're a good girl. You like that landscape, huh? Yeah. So you can push some of that into this edge here. So I can put more stuff into it, but I soften it out. And I can draw the viewer back up into here. And depending on how many edges and what I do back there, let's put a little bit more yellow oxide. You draw that viewer right up into here by, you know, tap it in and out of that trees, make some little grasses coming in and out of the trees, and you bring the viewer right into there, into your landscape here. So that's different ways, and all kinds of different ways, all kinds of different looks. You're in control of it by what you do. Does that make sense? Okay. So then what I do is you know, I'll come back up here. I'll start, usually what I'll do is I'll take some green, burnt sienna, maybe a little bit of blue. That'll start, let's put that tree right here. That'll start that tree, you know, it's going to go right there. And I'll blur off, and I just like doing that, blur off those edges. But see, since I'm using acrylic, I don't smear anything else that I have, you know, going on there. And you can bring out some of the branches and stuff here and start to fill up and paint your tree. And I've got all kinds of different ways in which I paint trees, but you have some of that. But usually when I start a tree, I keep it, you know, if I'm painting like this, very impressionistic here, what I do is I start with a very, and since we're in the fall, we'll start more yellow and sky and very gray, but sky color in here. And I put in what's called the atmospheric leaves first. Those are the ones that are, and I just kind of scumble those around. I envision the back part of the tree, everything into the back here, the edges, the back edges and stuff like that of the tree. So you see it's kind of receding here. We'll take out a bit of my beautiful mountain. But that's the other side of the tree. So you've got to look out here at the wispy part. Remember, a tree isn't just flat, it's big and round. So you've got to put it in the back of the tree, then I put it in the center part of the tree, then I put it in the forward part of the tree. So that's generally how I, you know, start a tree out here. We could have a bit more stuff there. Maybe a idea of a nice little thing coming out. Now, light is coming from the right, so let's take some burnt sienna, some of my yellows here, maybe a touch of the greens, maybe there's just a bit of green. Model that on. Now onto the right side of each kind of area or clump, I'll put in some shadow. Sometimes I put it in heavy. Sometimes let's just go heavy right over here. Sometimes just very whispery here. Sometimes I use my paper towel and tap those so I get some more undulations there, like that. This is the shadow of the tree here. Boom, just like that. But mainly over to the right side. So right over here, in this area here, I would get quite a bit darker, depending upon how much interest I want this tree to have. I put in more dark and stuff right over there. And depending upon the whole look of the whole painting, what you want to have, you know, that's what you do. And then you start building your lights. And your lights you can do in a couple of layers. Let's put a nice maybe just a little bit of green in there. It's fall, but maybe just a little bit of green. Some yellow, model some of that up. Take your brush, use some different edges here. Here like that. Think hitting the right side, which is the light side, and then diminishing down as you come back up in here into the center. But you can put it up in clumps. You can, look to your trees for ideas. Well, let's put a bit of light right out here. Some of that, maybe a touch lighter little clump right there into the front, onto that right side there, like that. Push some of those colors in. It's kind of fun. It's very fun, actually. And maybe as it gets out over here, you have just a few light hits here and there. Let's put a bit more light right out here. A little edge of that. You can take some of that light and hit the light side of the tree here. Just take some of that off. All kinds of fun ways to hit that and do that. Maybe you make some more medium-sized trees back out here. Take some of this light, touch it into some of these trees out here so that carries the look and those colors. Not everywhere, just to those right sides, and so you get some of that, those colors out there. Let's put a bit of that light right out here. Maybe there's just a bit of that there. And then you can, other little things, more contrast, more darks, lights, darks, maybe right up along here, along the edge of the shore. Some more lights, darks. If I was doing the fall, I'd put some leaves and stuff down there on the ground. A lot more details, but that gives you kind of an idea, okay, and that's what I wanted to show you guys is a real quick way to basically, and using your acrylics like this, especially put it in that atmosphere. And if you want to push something back, just make sure everything is dry, push the atmosphere in there, and then you're fine. So I could even, let's just show you that. Take some of my light, anything close to the sky. It doesn't have to be perfect sky, just anything close to the sky here. It's got to be about that value 8 though. You don't want to get it lighter than that, otherwise it'll start to look a little bit cloudy. And I'll just add some extender to this and control where I put it here. But so I can just whisper some of that right up over here like this. See? And that starts to, see how it pushes back, right back that area there. This is called the atmospheric of it. And what you're actually doing is using the atmosphere, your sky. And, next time you're out there driving, I see it every day out here on the prairie. We can see, it's flat, we can see forever and ever, but we can see the atmosphere, how that reacts with the colors and how the colors changes. But, look out there through your mountains and stuff like that and see just how much they change. How much everything changes and stuff like that, as it goes back. It gets those blues. It gets the atmosphere. So as an artist, you could either do it as a premix or with the acrylics, which I really like, you can come in and add it. Just add it as a glaze over the top of that. I lightened up some of those clouds, so let's just put in a little bit of that cloud. See, I'll just smoosh it in there. And smooshing is a paint term. Yeah. Oh, I feel sorry for so many years I taught in so many different countries. In all of my teaching and stuff, my wife and I used to travel around the world. We averaged 3 times around the world every year. And we taught in 29 different countries and over the years in all these different universities and stuff. And I always saw all my translators that were always there. Whenever I'd say smush it, how does that transfer into Korean and Japanese? And, it was just fun. So anyway, I'll put just a bit of that in there onto some of those clouds. And see that. But you can see that's, you step back and look at that gives, I'd add some more. I wouldn't consider this painting done. I'd add some more. But you guys get a good idea for that. The atmosphere. Think in the back, working to the front, working your edges, working your colors. But the big thing is that atmosphere, because that can change a lot of things, and very fun. And then you can take it a little bit more detailed as we start to add other things. That's what I'm going to be doing with my big moose there. That's part of one of my online classes called S201, The Art of Seeing. And we've been painting fox and moose and waterfalls and all kinds of stuff in that painting. It's not only flowers, and we paint it all, but we teach you how to see in that class. And it's been going on for a couple years, and it's still got a couple years left. So it's kind of what I call my perpetual online class. It never ends. So since we have a whole bunch of 6 new students from Alaska, and they all wanted to paint a moose, we said, okay, let's go paint a moose. And I'll put the Denali mountain range up there in that as well. Okay, there you guys go. Thanks so much. If you like this video and you want to see some more just real quick tips like this and stuff, just make sure you hit that like button and leave us a comment. That would be great. I would love that, because that helps the video, okay? And for those of you that are in as part of our membership, I'll put that reference photo up and a photo of this so that you can practice it. Just take a small board. Don't make a Rembrandt. Just take a small board. Practice your eyes seeing that atmospherics and how they come forward. Practice your brushwork here. More powerful brushwork, softer brushwork back through there. And that'll help you with a lot of your depth to your painting, okay? Thanks, guys. I'll see you on the next one. I think we're doing birds, next. Okay, see you next one.